Hello and welcome to Friday's ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the southeast. After a huge blaze destroyed a building on Whitstable Harbour, the area is declared as out of bounds for visitors.
It got worse and worse. We had a very strong wind bringing it down here, and the flames got bigger and started coming out the roof.
Would you know what to do if you got into trouble in the water? The RNLI launches its new beach safety campaign with life-saving tips.
We're also looking ahead to the Commonwealth Games this Friday night as athletes from the southeast set their sights on a medals haul.
And remembering the little ships with the big reputation, honouring the heroes of Dunkirk, the sailing veterans that helped our troops when they needed it most. Good evening. Traders and tourists have reacted with dismay on hearing that Whitstable Harbour, one of the most popular tourist destinations in the southeast, is likely to be out of bounds for visitors at one of the busiest times of the year.
A huge fire tore through buildings on the waterfront yesterday. The blaze was so severe, demolition is now underway. And Canterbury City Council, who look after the seafront there, say it will be some time before day trippers can return. We'll be live to Tom Savides in a moment, but first, Tom's report.
Fire rips through a cockle shed on Whitstable quayside. Within minutes, the building is covered in smoke and flames. The shed was empty at the time, but the damage is all too clear. Andy Thomas runs Kites and Things just a few metres away. He feared the fire would spread to neighbouring businesses.
Fire engines arrived, but then it got worse and worse. We had a very strong wind bringing it down here. And the flames got bigger and started coming out the roof. So yeah, a bit frightening.
A large part of the quayside remains cordoned off, with some businesses closed. Several roads and paths into and around Whitstable Harbour have been shut as fire investigators try to establish what happened. The iconic cockle shed has been completely destroyed.
When I heard yesterday afternoon, I was totally shocked. My reaction was the thought of the loss of the heritage to Whitstable, of the buildings that have sadly been burnt. There will be great sadness initially, but there's still enough of the harbour and those other special places around the harbour that Whitstable will come back.
Work to demolish the cockle shed has started as it's structurally unsafe. Luckily, no one was hurt in the blaze, but Whitstable has lost one of its landmarks.
Well, let's go to Tom live on Whitstable waterfront this evening. Tom, any idea when the quayside will open in its entirety for visitors?
Well, that's the question everyone is asking. At the moment, I understand that the authorities are hoping to reopen the quayside behind me on Sunday, well in time for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations at the end of next week, and of course for all the holidaymakers here in Whitstable to enjoy the good weather. What's more uncertain, however, is when will the cockle shed reopen and what will happen to the adjoining businesses nearby. Of course, you can currently see that demolition work here is currently ongoing.
Tom in Whitstable, thank you. And remember, you can find more on our stories from right across the southeast on our website. Please go to itv.com/Meridian.
Two teenagers are to appear in court after a stabbing in Folkestone on Tuesday last week. A 17-year-old boy from Canterbury and a 15-year-old boy from Ramsgate have each been charged with attempted murder. They'll appear at Margate Youth Court on Monday.
People fleeing Afghanistan made up almost a quarter of the migrants crossing the Channel in the first 3 months of the year. That's according to new figures from the Home Office. It's prompted concerns by campaigners that the government's resettlement scheme in the wake of the Taliban takeover is failing.
Police have released images of a man they wish to speak to following a violent confrontation at Greenhithe Station. An argument broke out on the evening of Sunday, April the 24th, with the offender threatening to throw a member of staff onto the live tracks.
3 men have been arrested while picketing in Hailsham as part of the continuing bin strikes. Police say the protesters, aged 62, 63 and 55, were caught blocking the road outside the depot. The GMB said their protests remain peaceful and that they are ready to return to talks when Wealdon Council's waste contractors Biffa are ready. The RNLI is launching its summer safety campaign ahead of what is expected to be a busy holiday season at the region's tourist hotspots. Last year, millions of people visited our beaches, but hundreds got into difficulties in the water.
Lifeguards say everyone should learn a simple technique which could be the difference between life and death. Live now to Malcolm Shaw in Shoreham. Malcolm, conditions look pretty idyllic there this evening.
They certainly do, don't they? It's not hard to see why so many people will be tempted to take a dip in the sea right round our coastline in the coming months. Usually, of course, everything will be fine, but sometimes things can go wrong. Now, this beach, for example, shelves quite steeply, so you can suddenly find yourself in very deep water. So it's vital that you know what to do if you get into difficulties. It's hard not to panic, but if you're struggling in the water, this is what you should see. The sky above as you float, trying to calm your breath while help is on the way. This is the float to live technique, and while this is a demonstration, this rescue footage is real. It shows how 2 fishermen used the method last year to save themselves after a freak wave knocked them overboard and into the water. Last June, retired police officer John also had to float to live as he was suddenly pulled into a rip current.
There was like I said, this sort of 2 metre swell crashing down on me. It was like the vortex. It was just such a desperate situation. It was like being in a washing machine, and I was really panicking. I was struggling to breathe.
John says he owes his life to the float to live technique.
I wouldn't have been here. If I'd have not known that, I would have probably tried to either swim against it or swim back, try and swim myself back in. I would have become rapidly exhausted. I would have probably panic would have set in. I would have run out of oxygen, and I would, with all the swallowing of the water, I would have become disorientated, and I wouldn't have been here.
Last year, the RNLI attended more than 800 incidents in our region and saved 4 lives. And lifeguards say, whether you're used to the water or not, knowing this method could save you.
What happens when you fall into water, your breathing rate is going to escalate, so it's going to really start breathing. And with that, when you go trying to breathe, you're not really filling your lungs with air, and with that then you panic and need more oxygen, and then you start splashing around, and that's when you get yourself into trouble. So with that float to live, really spread those limbs, really start thinking clearly and breathing and relaxing, you'll be able to get yourself out of trouble.
Today, Abby and Esme showed us how it works in the calm waters of this beach. But as these rescues show, no one should take the power of the sea for granted.
So Malcolm, what else can you do to stay safe in the water?
Well, one thing that you can do is choose a beach where there are lifeguards on duty, so look out for those red and yellow flags. Another warning is don't use inflatables if there are strong winds or rough seas. And if you see someone else getting into difficulties and there's no lifeguard to hand, then dial 999 or 112 and ask for the Coast Guard.
Malcolm Shaw, thank you very much. South East ports and airports have been under real pressure today. At one stage, drivers into Dover were experiencing queues of almost 3 hours. And Gatwick's experienced its busiest day since the pandemic.
Traffic authorities in Kent say careful management has allowed the town centre of Dover to remain reasonably free-flowing. But for motorists heading for holiday and football fans en route to the game in Paris, it's been a frustrating afternoon. Joe Caution is live for us in Dover now. Joe, a tough day for travellers.
Yeah, absolutely, Sangeeta. But the key word there in your link was free flowing, and that's what it is here at the entrance to the Port of Dover now. But that hasn't been the story for most of the day here. Take a look at some of these pictures of the several miles of tailbacks on the A20. That traffic management system holding the cars and the lorries out from the centre of Dover to keep business moving, to keep the town moving. But that disruption here in Dover has been for two reasons really today. The first is the start of the half-term holidays, people trying to get away, and secondly because of a surge in Liverpool fans travelling across the Channel to see their team play in the Champions League final tomorrow. Both unfortunately have been experiencing delays of up to 3 hours. Now, Dover's not really uncommon to the likes of traffic. We've seen plenty of that over the last few months with the P&O saga. They've had limited sailings today as well, despite all of their ferries being deemed fit to sail. The Port of Dover have been advising passengers to pack plenty of food and drink so they know that they're going to get caught up in journeys. And they are expecting a very busy week ahead as well. If anyone who has missed a sailing today, ferry operator DFDS say they can just catch the next one if they've been stuck in the tailbacks. But some of the travellers today have been describing this as completely ridiculous, a complete shambles and just unorganised. So you can just see how angry people are about sitting in traffic.
And Joe, briefly, things are a bit better at Gatwick tonight.
Well, they are, Sangeeta, absolutely. A spokesperson for the airport told us it's been their busiest day since the pandemic. They had a few problems, EasyJet and B&A, technical issues this morning, so there were long queues there. EasyJet passengers facing delays for a second day, but just like here in Dover, it's a common theme really at the start of a holiday. There's been plenty of hiccups for holidaymakers.
Joe, thank you.
You're watching ITV News in the Meridian region. Coming up, how this summer's Commonwealth Games can act as an inspiration for a new generation of athletes. And you can find more on today's top stories in the region throughout the day on our website. Go to itv.com/Meridian. You can call us on 0808 1010 095. Remember, you can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
And with details about the ITV Evening News, here's Romney Weeks.
Coming up, in Texas, confusion and anger over how quickly police responded to the school shooting that left 21 dead. It's emerged the killer was inside for more than an hour before he was stopped. P&O ferries are back in trouble. We've seen documents that show a dramatic drop in freight and passenger numbers. Warnings of a global food catastrophe as Russia stops grain from leaving Ukraine. And why Sainsbury's could end up in court for stopping a man bringing a cat into store. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Thank you. Now, charities are urging women to stop suffering in silence and seek help for painful periods and pelvic pain, which could be a symptom of a chronic condition called endometriosis.
Well, it affects 1 in 10 women and is incredibly painful. It's as common as asthma, but on average it takes 8 years to diagnose. With more, Catherine Walker.
Louise from West Sussex has a chronic condition called endometriosis. Her symptoms leave her in excruciating pain, but it took her years to get diagnosed.
You don't know how you're going to wake up. You could wake up feeling absolutely fine. You could wake up in excruciating pain. And, you know, some of us, like myself, you have to carry on with your life. You have to earn money to pay your bills. You know, it doesn't just stop, but it can. You know, I went 6 months without working because I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't, just couldn't function.
Endometriosis occurs when tissue similar to the lining of the womb starts to grow elsewhere in the body and build up. Symptoms range from painful periods to chronic pelvic pain and can have a big impact on day-to-day life. But a recent survey found that 76% of women would put off going to their doctor if they had a painful period. That rose to 89% in younger women aged 16 to 24.
So I think that there's a taboo about periods and people still, pulling faces and looking squeamish if they don't want to talk about them. And I think we have to just get over that. it's very natural. Let's get on with it. I think there is an issue about the pain being normalised and people, just saying, oh, they hurt, don't they? And so people are made to believe when they're young that that's what a normal period is like.
It's a story that's all too familiar for Paralympian Charlotte Henshaw. She was only diagnosed with endometriosis after her coach encouraged her to track her periods. They realised her stomach pain was linked to her ovulation.
Menstruation, period, all those words need to become a lot more frequently used and without embarrassment. I've definitely grown more confident in talking about, my reproductive health in the last 18 months because I've had to, but it has fostered so many more useful conversations.
It's a message GPs are also keen to highlight. Dr. Lisa Phillip wants to encourage women to be confident talking about their health.
I think it's really upsetting that happens and this affects so many women and they feel like they can't come to see the GP. I think we grow up and we're conditioned to think that period pains are normal and a normal part of life and we should get on with them, which to a certain degree is true. But if your period pain impacts you so much that you can't carry on with your daily life and you have to take to bed for 2 to 3 days a month, then it's a significant problem.
As Charlotte discovered, painful periods and pelvic pain can be symptoms of wider issues. She hopes sharing her story will tackle the taboo and inspire more people to talk openly about menstruation. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
Tomorrow there will be 2 months to go until the Commonwealth Games get underway, with athletes from our region competing for medals this summer.
A decade on from the London 2012 Olympics, it's hoped this major competition, another one on home soil, will help inspire the next generation. With the story, here's Nick Smith.
The nation is gearing up for a huge summer of sport. And as the countdown to the Commonwealth Games reaches the final weeks, one important milestone will be the arrival of the Queen's baton to the southeast on the 17th of July. Ryan Brett from Gillingham has competed in the World Transplant Games and will take part in the baton relay as it makes its way across the country before reaching Birmingham for the opening ceremony.
It means the world to me to represent the southeast and the transplant community mainly as well. All the achievements that I've got, I suppose, it's sort of little recognition, I suppose, but yeah, it's a real honour to be in one of the Queen's baton relay team.
The finishing touches are also being applied to the venues, like the brand new Aquatic Centre, which had trial events earlier this week, to ensure it's fit to host elite divers and swimmers from all across the Commonwealth.
The pool's fantastic. It's so nice to see the venue open, kind of get a little bit of an insight as to what it might be like at the Commonwealth Games. So it's fantastic that some of these younger swimmers have had the opportunity to be here and see this venue.
The impact of a major games hosted on home soil reaches far and wide. For grassroots sports clubs like this one, coaches remember the huge boost in interest after London 2012, and they hope Birmingham 2022 will inspire their young athletes to aim for new heights.
I started doing javelin and then I got quite into it and now it's a full-time athletic commitment for me. So yeah, it's my plan for the future to hopefully represent in the Commonwealth Games.
So we've had a great cohort of athletes that joined after the 2012 Olympics. They were really inspired by what they saw. And these guys are now going on to represent their county, represent their nation in some cases.
Because there's more television coverage, with it being home games, then more people see it and we do get a lot more coming along. And we do get some pretty good athletes turning up.
But it's not just about those aiming to reach the pinnacle of their sporting professions. A home games gives us an opportunity to encourage participation at any level. Two-time Olympic and Commonwealth gold medal winner Rebecca Adlington says the true legacy is seeing the wider benefits of getting more people active.
It's actually everybody involved in that. It's the people watching, it's them getting up and going down to the pool or going down to their local leisure centre and doing something. It's the athletes taking that responsibility. It's everybody, the volunteers, the people that are running these programmes. Every single person has got a part to play to make sure that sport is accessible for everyone.
And as we edge closer to Birmingham 2022, it serves as a reminder that sport should be inclusive for everyone, whether you're going for gold or just at your own pace. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Well, Nick is at the Alexander Stadium in Birmingham, which is hosting the athletic events during the Games. Nick, we can see lots of construction work going on behind you. So what can spectators enjoy once it's done?
Well, of course, this stadium here will play host to those big ticket athletic events and the opening and closing ceremonies, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to. And the finishing touches are being applied to this stadium, which is going to see its capacity increase to 30,000 during the Games and then reduced to 18,000 once the Games are over. And we're going to see fans from across the world, of course, travelling here, and plenty from the southeast as well. So it should be a great atmosphere. And I've been speaking to the chief executive of Birmingham 2022 to tell me a little bit about what we can expect.
You get to see all the disciplines here. You'll get to see an incredible both opening and closing ceremony at this venue. So without giving away too many secrets, we've got an incredible team on board. We've got Stephen Knight as our executive producer, who of course was the creator of Peaky Blinders. We've got Iqbal Khan, an internationally renowned artistic director, and I've had a little bit of behind the scenes intelligence, and it's going to be a spectacular show.
And Nick, in your report, you spoke about the potential legacy of the Games, because there are calls to ensure it has a lasting impact on sport participation in our region.
Well, certainly so. And one of the criticisms of the legacy of London 2012, of course, the last big Games hosted on English soil, the London 2012 Olympics, was that, while it did inspire a generation of new athletes, many of whom will be coming through to compete in these Games, overall sport participation levels, especially among young people, well, they've remained fairly static over the last decade or so. And I caught up with Baroness Tanny Gray-Thompson, who's a former Paralympian, and she told me she wants the buzz and excitement around these Games to be converted into a real effort to boost participation in grassroots sport.
The great things that came out of London 2012 was the physical legacy and the high aspiration for bringing about change. But actually, the most important lesson we can learn is about having political and government will to say we are going to do something differently. We're going to deliver physical activity and sport in a different way, and really ensure that people have opportunities to be able to participate.
And of course, it's just 2 months to go now until these Games, and there are still a few tickets on sale for certain events, so plenty of chances to come down here and see elite competitors from all across the Commonwealth.
Nick Smith at the Alexander Stadium in Birmingham, thank you.
It's going to be some spectacle.
And it looked nice there, didn't it?
It looks glorious.
Yeah, gorgeous
absolutely.
in Birmingham.
Now, a special plaque is being unveiled tomorrow to honour the little ships that took part in the heroic rescue of British troops during World War II.
Yes, and this week in 1940, around 850 small vessels commandeered by the Royal Navy left their home ports across the southeast on a journey across the English Channel to Dunkirk. They helped bring back thousands of soldiers left stranded on the beaches after defeat by German forces.
Sadly, over time, many of those boats have rotted away, but there are still efforts to restore them to their former glory. Here's Derek Johnson.
We're in front of a fascinating vessel. She's called Dorian, a 42-foot wooden boat, originally used by the Royal Navy. In fact, there would have been people rowing it. This wooden line you see down here, the oars would have come out, but it was turned into a private yacht at some point, and then it fell on very hard times indeed. And we can show you some photos now of just how desperate Dorian looked before the restorers got to work. Thankfully, we're in the position where the vessel is seaworthy now, and she is a Dunkirk little ship. That's very special indeed. Vessels like this one would have gone right up to the beach in Dunkirk and rescued those stranded troops, brought them out to larger Royal Navy vessels that then brought them back across the English Channel to ports such as Ramsgate and Margate and Dover. Operation Dynamo it was, and that was run out of Dover Castle. We can speak to another Derek now, who was in charge of the restoration. When was the
vessel was built in 1915 in Portsmouth Dockyard as an open rowing boat, and converted in the 30s to a gentleman's yacht, more or less as you see it now.
She's fascinating because she actually saw active service in both World War I and World War II.
She did indeed, yes. Yes, so she was built for both walls, really.
How bad was she when you got hold of her?
When she came down to the Dunkirk Little Ship Trust in Southampton, she was completely burnt out. The wheel had gone in a gas explosion on board. She'd been laid up in a boatyard and totally derelict with a tree growing out of it.
That's bad. And how long did it take, painstaking work that you undertook there?
This project's really taken with the trust and the volunteers and ourselves about 10 years to rebuild.
This is not the first vessel you've worked on, and you've got another Dunkirk Little Ship that you're going to take charge of quite soon, I think.
We have another Dunkirk Little Ship due back any day now, which was built at a similar sort of time and has been abandoned in France, that we rebuilt for somebody 30 years ago.
Very special, Derek. Why do you think we should be restoring these sorts of boats?
I think we have to keep the history alive for the future generation coming up.
Well, indeed, no wiser words can be spoken 82 years after the miracle of Dunkirk.
Derek Johnson there, and it's indeed a miracle. I'm always amazed by what they did back
Absolutely,
there.
It's just incredible, isn't it? And just so fantastic that we continue to remember it and celebrate it.
Yep, and recognise those lovely little boats. Now, we've had so many blue skies, and the blue skies are going to continue with the forecast now. Here is Holly.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Well, certainly no shortage of sunshine out there for today. Plenty of blue sky overhead. Will it last into the weekend? Well, there are some changes afoot. Tonight, chilly underneath clear skies. Tomorrow, still some spells of sunshine, but I do think we'll have a bit more cloud feeding its way in. Maybe an isolated shower, but most places dry. Just feeling a little bit cooler as well. And then for Sunday, noticeably cooler, more cloud around, and we will start to introduce more in the way of showers. But let's look at the bigger picture so we can see what's going on. We've got high pressure out to the west. Initially, that's giving us this settled weather, but we are picking up more of a northerly flow. That's bringing in some cooler air and increasing this risk of showers. So out there for this evening then, well, I think a nice end to the day, some sunshine around, starry skies as we push into tonight, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will take a bit of a tumble. You could see an odd misty patch, but there shouldn't be too much of that. These are typical values, but I think out in the countryside we could well see those numbers dropping a few degrees lower. So as we head into tomorrow morning, it is a bit of a chilly start for this time of year, but some sunshine from the word go. However, we do see more cloud just bubbling up as we head through the day. You could, as I say, see a rogue shower or two. Most of us, though, in for a dry story, but you can see those temperatures are a little bit lower than today's values. Taking a look at our high tide time, just the one there at Sheerness at 12:19, and finally then the outlook. Well, as I say, I think that increased risk of showers into Sunday, a cooler feel as well, that will be noticeable, and again we keep that trend cooler with showers into the beginning of next week.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
And let's take a look at our pollen levels. Well, today we saw high levels, and again with some sunshine tomorrow, more of the same, high conditions. Some showers though and a cooler feel, seeing moderate conditions for Sunday and Monday.
Enjoy that sunshine. In just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Romilly Weeks.
Andrew has your late update, and the team returns here on Monday. Have a fabulous weekend. See you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.